before the world wept for the unsinkable Titanic. White Star Line had already lost another grand ocean liner in a disaster just as horrifying. In 1873, the RMS Atlantic set sail with nearly 1,000 souls aboard, only for hundreds to meet a watery grave before reaching shore. We shall now pull back the veil on this tragedy for the ages. The Atlantic was on a routine voyage from Liverpool to New York, carrying over 950 passengers and crew. She was one of White Star Line's most advanced steamships, promising speed, luxury, and a smooth passage across the Atlantic. But a miscalculation, a desperate decision, and the unforgiving rocks off Nova Scotia would seal her doom. On March 20th, 1873, the Atlantic departed England, carrying a full load of emigrants, most of them poor families from Ireland and Scandinavia, seeking a better life in America. The ship was one of White Star Line's first transatlantic steamers, built for both comfort and power, with coal-fired engines that cut travel time dramatically. The voyage was uneventful at first, but as March came to an end, stormy weather and strong headwinds slowed the ship's progress. Then, a more serious problem emerged. The ship's coal reserves were running dangerously low. Captain James Williams faced a difficult choice. Rather than risk running out of fuel before reaching New York, he ordered a course change toward Halifax, Nova Scotia, to take on more coal before continuing the journey. It was a logical decision, but it would prove fatal. As the Atlantic neared the coast of Nova Scotia, the crew, exhausted from battling rough seas, lost track of their exact position. There were no lighthouses nearby, and the ship was navigating in total darkness. At 3:15 a.m., disaster struck. A sickening crunch shattered the silence. The Atlantic had slammed into a hidden reef off Mars Head, near Lower Prospect, Nova Scotia. The wooden hull buckled under the impact. Water poured into the lower decks, flooding the engine room almost instantly. The ship lost power within minutes and began to list dangerously to one side. On board, panic spread like a runaway contagion. The Atlantic had no general alarm system, so passengers were jolted awake by the chaos unfolding around them. Many rushed onto the decks in their nightclothes, desperate for safety. But the lifeboats were useless. Many had been smashed on impact, and others were impossible to launch in the raging surf. The ship listed further, and within minutes, freezing seawater surged across the deck. Hundreds of people were trapped below, unable to escape. Men fought to climb the rigging, trying to stay above the waves. Families clung to debris, their cries drowned by the wind and crashing surf. But for the women and children, survival was almost impossible. When the final count came in, it was revealed that every single woman and all but one child had perished. The sole child survivor was 12-year-old John Hindley, who clung to wreckage until rescuers arrived. At sunrise, fishermen from nearby villages spotted the wreck and rushed to help. They pulled survivors from the freezing water, many of whom were barely clinging to life. Thanks to their bravery, over 371 people survived, but at least 535 souls were lost. At the time, the sinking of the Atlantic was the deadliest maritime disaster in North American waters. The White Star Line reeled from the disaster, but even it would be overshadowed by later tragedies, one being the most famous one in all of maritime history. Many of the same mistakes, lack of lifeboats, overconfidence in the ship's strength, and poor navigation, would later doom the legendary Titanic. Though largely forgotten, the Atlantic remains one of the greatest shipping catastrophes of the 19th century. A stark reminder that even the mightiest ships are never beyond the reach of the sea. With that haunting knowledge in mind, we must remember all those lost travelers who share the same melancholy epitaph for all eternity. The sea is my grave. My grave is the sea. If you would like more lost ship stories, subscribe for more maritime tragedies. What shipwreck should we cover next? Let us know in the comments, and please like and share so we may continue to bring you more harrowing tales of the sea.